Vivek Ramaswamy was caught in some kind of questioning, hidden camera in the bushes type of gotcha questioning with a pansexual about very difficult issues. And we're going to be going over our reaction towards that video. It's a viral clip, and I'm just excited to do that with you. My name is Aaron. Hit the subscribe button if you like this type of content, Christian commentary on culture. But let's get right into this thing. Here he is, and he's in the trees here.
I was just wondering, what were your opinions on the LGBTQ plus community?
Well, I don't think it's one community.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, how could it be? Just mashed together in alphabet soup. Trans is fundamentally in tension with gay, if you ask me. But what's your opinion?
I'm personally pansexual, so I was
Okay.
just wondering what your views on same-sex couples were.
I don't have a negative view of same-sex couples, but I do have a negative view of a tyranny of the minority. So I think that in the name of protecting against a tyranny of the majority, and there are times in this country's history where we have had a tyranny of the majority, we have now, in the name of protecting against tyranny of the majority, created a new tyranny of the minority. And I think that that's wrong. I don't think that somebody who's religious should be forced to officiate a wedding that they disagree with. I don't think somebody who is a woman who's worked really hard for her achievements should be forced to compete against a biological man in a swim competition. I don't think that somebody who's a woman that respects her bodily autonomy and dignity should be forced to change clothes in a locker room with a man. That's not freedom, that's oppression. And so I believe that we live in a country where free adults should be free to dress how they want, behave how they want, and that's fine. But you don't become oppressive by foisting that on others. And that especially includes kids, because kids aren't the same as adults. And so I think adults are free to make whatever choices they want, but do not foist that ideology onto children before children are in a position as adults to make decisions for themselves. And so I think a lot of the frustration in the country, and if I'm being really honest, that I also share, comes from that new culture of oppression where saying those things can actually get somebody punished. And in my case, it's part of why it's my responsibility to say them. And I respect that you may have a different opinion, and that's okay. Part of what makes our country great is that you and I can be civil and have this conversation, and that we live in a country that still gives us, each of us, the right to speak to a presidential candidate and back, and still say that we pledge allegiance to the same nation. So I think that's the beauty of our country, and that's my honest opinion.
Awesome. Well,
Thanks.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you for your civility as well. I appreciate it.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there, but I have at least three major things that stood out to me. Number one, he says that that community, the alphabet soup community, is not one group. That's actually, he's like, how could it be? This doesn't make any sense. Number two, he asked her what her opinion was. And number three was the tyranny of the minority. So let's talk about the first one. I think it's interesting that he points out that they can't possibly be all one big group. It's not even logical to even assume that. And I found this funny as well, because it's like they're promoting this individual ideology. Like, I am an individual. I am sovereign in my own self. I can choose what I want to do with myself, but they are promoting individualism with the means or the modality is tribalism. It's like group identity is the means of establishing this individualistic ideology in people. It's just silly to me. It's silly to me. And we don't have to get into all of what the alphabet soup is, all the propaganda or whether or not it's right or wrong. That's not this place for this video. I just think that it's interesting that you would use the counterpoint for what you're trying to accomplish as the means of accomplishing it, right? You don't want to be labeled as all just one big thing. You want to be individualized. That's why every letter is in there trying to make this whole group. And now she's expecting that people can make assumptions based on the whole group, and this is where we see the fracturing of even within that group. And so I thought that was interesting. Number two was when he asked her her opinion. I thought this was probably the highlight of the video, and the reason why is because he is a man who is in the position to be heard. People are there to hear that man, Vivek. However, he then asks her the question, and he wants to hear her out. And you could even see, you could hear the audible pause, and she was taken aback that a potential president of the United States would ask her opinion. I don't think that she is much used to that. I think she's used to not being heard, and so she is forced to yell and scream and get her way. I'm generalizing, especially for this lady. I don't know that, but I think that's essentially what happens when you give ear to people who don't usually have people's ears. They really like that, and so he's when people are very quick to speak, he's quick to listen. He hears people out, and I think that's a trait that is very needed. There's a high level of IQ and EQ and just sympathy and able to connect with people on an individual level. And you saw that towards the end of the video. Now, the third thing was I wanted to address this idea of the tyranny of the minority. Now, I'm a new father, right? Not that new, but I'm pretty new. I've 2 kids. One's a 3-year-old. Now, when I just had one kid, she was tyrannical. If she wanted to wake up in the middle of the night, we're both waking up in the middle of the night. If she was having a meltdown, we are taking care of that meltdown, trying to console her, slap a tablet in her face, not really, but we're trying to do whatever they can to console, to keep the peace and sedate this tyrannical child. And in the same way, the tyranny of the minority is that there is the loudest, childish person in the room is owning and commanding the attention and the energy and the decision-making process of the adults in the room. That's where I think the tyranny of the minority is in. Now, in olden days, you take a vote, of what game you're playing, and the majority always won. Even in our elections, that's how it runs. However, this tyranny of the minority always goes back to the loudest, most troublesome, most unagreeable or disagreeable. And perhaps this is how it operates in the business world. If there's a whole bunch of people who are working and one person is unhappy and they're trying to make more money, they complain. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, essentially, is what we're talking about here. And what that means is the one who's the loudest and most troubled, you got to solve that. You got to get that one. So maybe that's that ideology stretched and taken too far, but that's just how I feel about that. I think on one hand, I thought it was fantastic that he was able to end with a handshake and level of civility. I thought that was fantastic. But I don't know. I think he said that we are both able to pledge allegiance to the same country and disagree if that's okay. And I thought that was great. Now, I want to pull up this clip here. And this is a clip of Fox News covering that same incident from another angle. And we see that it's actually not a gotcha style video. There's 2 cameras at least, one from this angle, one from this angle, and the monkey in the tree. So let's get into this.
I thought you said something very key in that exchange with that voter, that consenting adults, Americans believe in freedom. That's none of our business. I agree with you on that issue. The question is, and where the controversy comes in, is people on the left, they want to indoctrinate our children. They feel that their values are superiors to parental values. And I say, excuse me, teach them reading, writing, math, science, history, and computers, and then keep your personal views to yourself and let parents instill the values they cherish and believe in. Is that a fair summation of where you stand?
Absolutely spot on, Sean. And the reality is kids aren't the same as adults. So if gender dysphoria is such a condition of suffering, then why on earth are we going out of our way to create even more of it by spreading this ideology through young kids in our schools? What's really happened, Sean, is we have a tyranny of the minority in this country. We used to protect against the tyranny of the majority, and so that's where the LGBT rights movement came from, is protect their rights. Well, my view is, if you're an adult, live how you want. But what we have in this country is a new tyranny of a fringe minority. And I refuse to say that that somehow changes the language we use, changes how women compete in sports, changes which bathrooms people use, and let alone change the way we indoctrinate our children. No, I stand against that kind of tyranny, and I will do it with civility. I will do it with respect for every human being. That was a self-described pansexual who confronted me with what she thought were some difficult questions. She and I disagreed, and so it's not that I look down on her as a human being, but I refuse to abide by this new tyranny of this cult, and that's what I stand for.
Yeah, so I thought that was really interesting that he would give a little more context to it. He said that there's this that she thought that these were difficult questions, and he handled like a pro. And then towards the end, he says that I'm going to handle this with respect and civility. I respect her as a human being, and I think we lose some of that with some of our other candidates. I mean, they could say they respect all they want, but there's not a lot of evidence of that. You know what I mean? Like, and he's one of these characters that I feel like I'm just, I've made these videos more and more. I feel like, wow, yeah, I would be really, I'd be okay with this guy representing me. But I do want to end on this note that he did mention that this dysphoria that is occurring, it's such a pinpoint of struggling and suffering in someone's life. Why in the world would we want to spread that to the children? Like, why would we spread a point of suffering to children in this ideology? And I thought that was brilliant, actually. Like, why is that, right? Why would you want to do that? And the point is, you don't. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. If you like watching this type of content, I'm really getting into some of his opinions on here, and it's really just from a Christian perspective, it's showing Christ's love. I think I got to show that. I think I got to play that or say that. Like, he is not a Christian, but he's certainly sharing the values of how to treat other people, and I really respect that. Anyway, tell me what you think about this exchange with Vivek Ramaswamy, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And maybe check out this one of Vivek and Jordan Peterson having a dialogue and having a back-to-back conversation here.